Hello and good evening. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of July. Gosh, only 9 days to go and we're at the end of July. Where has that gone? We said that when June was here. Where has June gone? But I am just 1 minute early. Ooh. And so I'm not expecting anybody to be here just yet. So I'm going to find it on my pad today. Oh, there's Maria watching. Hello, Maria. And, oh, there we are. Let's just make sure we are completely turned off. We are. So I am doing it the opposite way round tonight. I am, let's see if it goes that way. There we go. Oh, that's better. Yes, I'm the opposite way round. I am filming on the phone and I am looking on my pad for comments. So let's, oh dear. Right. Oh, so I only see the odd comment at a time. And if I miss it, I miss it. I see. So live chat. There's Alison. Good evening to you and Judith. Let's see if they can, oh, you see, can't get them that way. How ridiculous is that? Okay, so it's not going to let me have any comments unless I see them immediately. So welcome to all of you. I won't even bother looking. I'm going to put my pad just there. My goodness, I've got me on the iPad and I look bigger. So for those of you that watch on the TV screen, oh my goodness, oh, what a sight. Oh dear, look at my receding hair as well. Never mind. I hope you're all well and welcome to Quick Makes, which is this Tuesday's project. Now, of course, we have got one more Tuesday in July, and therefore next week it's going to be machine embroidery. I haven't thought what I'm going to do, but I shall find something to show you that's hopefully a little bit different or even refreshing on some of the techniques we use with our embroidery machines. So I hope you've all had nicer weather. Always get onto the weather, don't I, these days? But it's been cooler here today. A little splattering of rain. I couldn't really call it rain, just a dusting, if you like a dusting of snow, but it was just damping in the air, and that's all we've had. So doesn't mean that I can't water the flowers because they will need a drop of juice. There we are. Still no comments, but never mind. I'm sure they will at some point. So, as I say, tonight's quick make, I will show you. I will get straight into it because it's actually a lovely little make. I actually saw the shape somewhere, and then I thought, right, I'm going to draw up my own pattern. So I'll always show you my pattern. So it starts, as usual, with a bit of scrap paper and folded in half. Now, actually, I didn't know how big I was going to have to draw this. So I've actually taped my paper together. Okay, so I started, what did I start? There we are. That's what I started drawing. I thought that looks okay. This was roughly where I was going to end my pieces, but then decided I wanted a bit longer. And as you see, I've drawn that line. I've drawn this line to have my diagonal, and then, as I say, I attached, so this was the edge of an A4 sheet. I then put sellotape on that edge so that I could have a second piece, and then I cut through both pieces of paper at the same time and open it out. Right, so there is my template. And I hoped for the best. Now, quite often, I have to adapt it slightly because it's not quite right. But this time, it worked out beautifully. So I also needed to have a flap, which is a piece that fits on there. That's going to be my flap. Now, I did think at one point, as I was cutting it, I could have cut this piece longer so that it was all in one. but it didn't work quite the same. It was easier to have a separate flap. So the flap is just the same length as that side. And if you've downloaded the PDFs, which I've popped into the group, it's in files, there's the wording, and then there's 2 templates. So there's 3 PDFs that you need to download. And as I've said, there are 9 days to go. So if you get that downloaded as soon as you can, that would be great. So there were my pieces. And as I say, fortunately, they worked out really well. So I've got a little, that's the size of fabric that I used, but you actually don't need it to be as big as that. It can be a little bit smaller, because when you are cutting your fabric, the fabric needs to be about, well, 1/4 of an inch wider, or excess fabric here and here and here and at the bottom. When you print off the template, you draw around this on your fusible fleece. So I had the offer on over the weekend, so lots of you have got plenty of fusible fleece to be able to make the project. And I have put kits on the website in 6 different colours. I'll show you those in a moment, after you've seen the project, of course. And if you are canny with your fabric cutting, and rather than having, I think I've allowed a good inch on all the sides, you don't need to have an inch, but if you have at least 1/4 of an inch, you'll be fine. You will probably be able to get 3, you will probably be able to get 3 of the pouches that I'm going to show you out of each kit. Now, you will definitely be able to get 2, and you'll have spare, because you do need a little bit more to get your flap from. So I was thinking to myself, what you could do with the flap, rather than it be one piece of material, fabric, you could actually join 2 colours together. So the kits will contain a long quarter of outer fabric, a long quarter of lining fabric. So you could actually join pieces together in the lining fabric as well to make the flap piece. So again, this needs to be fabric-wise 1/4 of an inch bigger all the way around. So you just have to be a little bit canny. So that's where you can get at least 2, but possibly 3. And if you be even cannier and use the lining fabric, because all the fabrics I've used are from the Lighthouse collection by Adidas Sitar, you could use your lining fabric as your outer fabric and use some lining fabric from your stash instead. So you could possibly get up to 6, at least 4, but possibly 6. So the kits are £12. I haven't put a discount code, but what I've given you is free postage. So that's a saving of £4.25. So as I say, you can get as many as you can make out of the fabric. And you get, as I say, 2 long quarters of fabric, a long quarter of, a long quarter of your fusible fleece. But let me just see what the length is here. 11. Yes. So you will actually get, from your fusible fleece, you'll be able to get 3 of these. Let me just see how wide it is. 8, 7.5. You might have to join together the flaps, but you would be able to get 3 of these because they are only actually 11 inches long. And I've said 13 inches for the fabric. So as I say, if you put these end to end with only 1/2 inch in between, so you've got 1/4 inch seam allowance, you can get more from the kits. So it is quite good value, but then do I do any other, to be quite honest? So that really doesn't look very much to you, does it? So I'm going to put those out of the way and show you what we have. So here is your little lipstick pouch. Now I've called it a lipstick pouch because I didn't know what to call it. And at the end of the day, give it 6 months and I won't remember what the lipstick pouch was, let alone the Polly pouch or the Pippa pouch or any other pouches that I've called. And I sometimes look for instructions and I think, what on earth? I know I've done them, but what on earth did I call that? So on this occasion, this is a lipstick pouch. Now, got a little cam snap and you can see there's a fair size in there. You don't have to put your lipsticks in there. You could put whatever you like. It's not big enough for a phone, I am sure. It works out, it's about 6 inches along there. It is almost 3 inches deep and tall. It's about 2.5 inches tall. So I haven't got anything to hand, but reels of thread would easily go in there. Oh, I've got one sitting here. Oh, look, that fits. That fits beautifully down there. Just think of that as a little gift for a friend at Christmas. 3 of those reels, you probably get 4 in there, but it's a really handy, and you might get 2 layers high actually. So you might get 6 in there, 6 reels of fabric. So that would take the Aurifil too. So this one is the cream lipstick pouch. Let's just pop that together. And you'll find in the instructions, there are 3 different templates for the flap. So this is the longer template and it looks a bit wider. This one is a smaller template. I've pulled it down about as far as, but it comes together, which makes it a little bit smaller, or it pulls it together more, but you can place your cam snaps wherever you like. So this is the red option. In the red, we have, what do we have inside? Oh, we have that nice stripy one that goes with that lovely red floral. And I didn't quite see what we had. Oh, we have that lovely, look at that, lovely fabric, as I say, from the Lighthouse collection to go with the beautiful cherries on cream. So that one's the cream option. So let me just show you which other, so on the website, I haven't made all of them up, all the different samples, but I have put the fabric shown in the, and this is the one I'm making tonight. So this one is blue, that's the blue option. You can see there, love this fabric here. Really, really pretty. So that's number 1. There is the red one that I was showing you, those 2 fabrics together. Then I've got the peach option again with cherries on. That one's the peach option. So here, I really wouldn't know which to choose for my lining and my outer. So as I was saying, if you're a little bit canny, you could do some and some, couldn't you? So you've got different ones. And then, which was a very popular colour, the teal. How lovely is that? Again though, which would you choose for your outside? Probably choose this one, but it would look just as pretty in that colour as well. So that one was teal. This one is navy. So I do rather like this fabric here. That navy one's really pretty. And then a cream with a little light blue spot on. So that one is your navy option. And then, of course, the cream, which I showed you first of all. So that is, those are your colour choices. Hard to choose, I would say. I've got to turn this pad the other way round because, oh, I can't see any comments, but hey ho. Never mind. Never mind. And all I've got is Judith and Janet are watching. And it's told me so many times, I really know that Janet and Judith are watching. I don't know about anybody else, but here you are. And thank you for joining me. There are 54 people watching tonight, which is absolutely lovely. But then what else would you want to do? It's Great British Sewing Bee tonight at 9. Fortunately, the football is on ITV. So I was thinking that the Great British Sewing Bee was going to be pushed aside but no. So the other thing with the Great British Sewing Bee is I will be putting a poll up, and I will be giving you the chance to win something when it has finished and we know who the winner of the 2025 Great British Sewing Bee. So you will be able to have one guess and one guess only. So I'll put a poll up with all of the names on, and that will be after tonight's session, because obviously 2 will go. So there will probably only be 10, but it will give you a chance, and myself, to remember who is who. The only one I remember at the minute is Gaynor. And I feel she is lovely. She is just a mature stitcher, and she likes normal day-to-day sewing, but I just love the way she is. You know how you just get your favourites straight away, but they are a lovely bunch. They're a lovely bunch. Okay, shall we begin? What I've done already, I am going to turn this down. I'm using another stand, so hopefully I'll be able to switch you round quite easily, but we shall see. So what I have done already, I have fused my fusible fleece onto the reverse of what is going to be my outer fabric, okay? And I've made sure I've left a good 1/4 inch on all sides, okay? And at the moment I have put it together, right sides together. No, I haven't, but I will. That's the right side. So I'm going to put right sides together and just align all those edges. It's good to have 2 pieces of fabric at roughly the same size, so that we are going to stitch around the outside of the fusible fleece. Because as you know, I do quite a few this way, and it gives a much nicer finish at the sides. And then I have cut out my template. So the template on the line, don't add any seam allowances. It's just on the drawn line. I would perhaps suggest that if you pop your template onto card, glue it onto some card, and then you can just draw around it onto your fusible fleece and then iron it onto the outer fabric. And then like the flap, I've put them right sides together. Okay, so let us shift this around. So let me think. I am going to turn this. I've got to turn it. Oh, I think I've got to turn it that away. So I'm going to turn that around. Whoops. And then, oh, what a mess. Nope. Not like, oh, do I do it like that? No, I want it to go the other way. Oh dear. No, I want it to go that way. No, oh, I want to swivel it, don't I? That's it. No, I want to turn it that way. Oh, for goodness sake, this should be, oh no, I want to, no, I don't want to. We'll get there. Well, we can see the sewing machine, can't we? Oh, perhaps. Oh, no, I don't want it like that. I want to be able to turn it like that. Oh, I'm going to have to take it off. There we are. Let's just take that off. Rotate your phone. I have. There we are. Oh, my goodness. There we are. There we are. Whoops, let's just poof that down. And I don't know why I couldn't do that a little bit better. I shall have to just, won't be able to turn it off now, will I? No, I don't know. There we are. Anyhow, we've got an overhead so that you can hopefully see what I'm going to be doing. So, what have I done there? Let's turn my pad around so that I can see. Oh, you can see what a mess there is there. I don't really want... There we are. So this is my stand just here. Here are the... Absolute rubbish, but you can see what I'm doing, can't you? So let's first of all do the flap. I'm going to put that on the ironing board. I'm going to do the flap, and if I had my pins to hand, I would put a pin in here just to hold the fabric together. Let's just stand up and get myself a pin or two. So let's put a pin in the centre, just so that we hold those fabrics together. Have a look to make sure most of it is in place. And what we're going to do, I'm going to start stitching. So I am going around the edge of the fusible fleece, but I'm going to start near the top because I do want that to be, I want that to be together rather than only starting at the edge of the fusible fleece. So now the other thing I'm going to do is, because I can, and there's no, because we are stitching around the edge of the fusible fleece, I'm not looking at any 1/4 of an inch seam allowances, and I do love using my narrow foot. So I'm just going to just change the foot, so I've got the narrow foot on instead. Okay, so as I say, I am going to start at the top, so at the very edge of the fabric, and as I'm just stitching through at the moment 2 layers of fabric, I'm going to turn my stitch length down to 2. So you can go slowly, you can go quickly, but definitely round the flap, the curve, I would go more slowly so that you can get a good stitched curve there. And I didn't say, but there are 3 different flaps. This one is the smaller flap, and then I've also done a flap which has straight cut-offs around there. Now I can already see, obviously my eyes aren't working properly, but I've gone a little bit way out there, so I'm just coming in again around the edge of the fusible fleece. That's better, because I was nowhere near the edge. Right, so I have stitched all around there. Now I am going to cut. So I'm going to just trim this away to probably about 1/8 of an inch. All right, because around the curves I like to trim to 1/8 of an inch because it makes the curve come out much nicer if you've got a narrow seam allowance. And as I'm using a short stitch length, that is also helping as well. So I'm just going to turn it to the right side because we've left the top open, and I'm going to pop my, that's it, push my finger around there. Now I haven't even pressed that, and yet those curves, those corners, those edges have all come out beautifully because there's no fusible fleece in the seam allowance. So let me just see if I can. I'm just going to, no, I don't think it's going to be as easy as before. If I'd have got my little iron on, but I've only got my big one on, so I know what I'll do. I'll get my pressing mat and we can do it on the board there. Just take off all those extra scraps that we had. Okay, so let's just bring in my pressing mat there, and we'll give that a little steam. Well, no steam, I'm just giving that a little hot press. So that is done, and you can see here that we have that excess fabric with no, we can push that back, and we've got excess fabric which is going to go into the seam allowance. So at this point, what we can do is fold that. If I just crease that, just push it so I've got a crease. And what we can do now is actually draw a little line across there. You see what, let's just grab this template here. So I'm going to put my ruler along that crease, and I'm just going to draw a light line. Okay, so if you draw the line into that seam allowance just above the crease, and then you're not going to see that. Or if you want to use a heat erasable pen or a water soluble, even better, because it's going to disappear once it's ironed, or a water soluble if you use a little bit of damp water. So what I'm going to do now is just stitch around. So I'm going to go the whole way around there with a top stitch. So let's just pull that thread out and then just stitch around this edge, or you can leave it. As you see, it looks very well without. It's nice and neat, but it's also nice to have a bit of top stitching. And if you're using another machine that you could do the triple stitch, that would look really lovely as well. Okay, so there we have our top stitching, just to add a little bit to that. So then we will now work on our other piece. So I've just set that aside for a minute. I will grab myself one or two of the pins, and again, just pop some pins to hold the fabrics together. And I have got right sides of fabric together, as you see. And I am going to leave, where did I leave? I'm going to leave a seam in one of these edges. So one of these wider edges, I'm going to leave a gap for turning. And the other edge is going to have the, what is it going to have? It's going to have the flap inserted in there. So at this point, that is the first thing we are going to do. So what you need to look at is, I'm going to insert the flap at this point inside here. So you need to pop this in. Okay. So you look at your outer fabric. I've got the outer fabric on the top, and I'm going to, the outer fabric, just push that back. I've lost, I need another couple of pins. Push that back. We are going to release it back to normal in a moment. But if we push it back and then pin that through, just to hold it back so that that is right against the fusible fleece there. So let's just put that in. I hope it doesn't thunder. Okay. And then what you've got to think is the flap is going to go, when it's in there, you want it to be coming over like that. So you're going to make sure that you have got right sides together. Okay. So right sides together here. And I'll just show you like this. So you want right sides of the outer fabrics together, and we are going to line up, which actually I could have been better to have. I've done my pencil line on my lining fabric. I really want it on my outer fabric. So let's just crease that again so that I can grab a pencil and a ruler and draw your line on the outer fabric. As I say, that is going to be hidden inside. So I've done a light line on my outer fabric. And again, remember, right sides together. And this excess fabric that has no interfacing, no fusible fleece, is going to go into the seam allowance. So if you, let's just turn this around like this. If you line up this edge with that line, okay, and you want that to be straight, otherwise your flap is going to be crooked. So I've lined that up, and I can just see the line above my outer fabric there. So once I have popped that in, I'm just going to release that fabric there, and pop a pin in it. And again, just making sure that that is lined up. So release that pin, allow the fabric to join together. Now, that's just coincidence that it lines up, but you want to make sure the line lines up, and that's going to be hidden under here. So we can then swivel that round. So we've pinned the flap inside and then pop that down. And if you want to put another pin in there just to hold that together, absolutely fine. Okay, so the flap's in that side. The opposite side is where we're going to leave our gap. So I would probably only stitch 1 inch either side so that we've got a reasonable gap in the middle there. So off we go. So just the same as with the flap, we are stitching to the edge, and I am going to just reverse a couple of stitches at the beginning. So we are coming around here, and then when we get to the edge of the fusible fleece, we can pivot, and we'll go up to that next point and pivot again. So I'm not stitching onto the fusible fleece, I'm stitching just to the side of it. So around we go, and then pivot again because we come to the end of that short edge, and then into there, and then out we come again. So when we come around this corner, we will be stitching through the flap as well. So let's just take that out. So we're going right along that edge, pull that pin out, and we are attaching the flap at the same time. So pin out of the way, straight down the next edge, into that corner, that inverted corner I call that, and then just to the edge. These are the sides, and pivot around again. So nothing too difficult as yet, is there? And in fact, the whole way through this, nothing is difficult. There we are. And we're coming up to almost the last edge now. And all we're doing is following the outside of our fusible fleece. So I'm on my last edge, and I'm just going to reverse. So I've left a reasonable gap just there. Okay. So I'm sorry I can't see comments. So now we're going to trim away. So let's just trim out these bits first of all. Now these pieces are a reasonable size, so I wouldn't, if you saw the little scrappy, I wouldn't throw those away because you'll get a good 2.5 inch square out of those pieces. So as I say, let's just trim these back, anything from 1/8 to 1/4 inch. There we go. And now this is the piece where I've left the gap. So I'm going to trim it narrowly where the stitching is, but I'm going to leave a bigger bit where this is for the turning gap. So that's better. Okay, so we can trim this. So leaving that turning gap, it just makes the, when we tuck it in, it just makes it go in a lot more easily to give you a nice straight edge, because quite often where you leave a gap, when you turn it in, you can see that's where you left a gap because it's not as even. The edge is perhaps slightly curved and not quite as good as the rest of it, the rest of the sides which have been in a seam. So let's keep those little bits. So now we're going to trim off these corner points. And, oh, I didn't do that one, did I? So that's another side. Okay, so trim off that corner point as well. That will give us nice, fairly pointy corners. We don't want them collar points, but we do want them reasonably pointed. Okay, So that's all of my points clipped off. No, it isn't. One more there. And then also these inverted pieces here, we want to clip into those. Try not to cut the stitching. If it does happen, you can always stitch around that area again. So into those 4 little points there. So remember, here's the gap because we have got that extra piece of fabric. So let's just push into, I usually say the furthest point. So let's just push in our side pieces first of all, because that will help. And by pulling those, so then I'm just pulling in one of those side pieces and pulling that through, because you've got something to hold on to. And then as you keep twisting, the flap will come out at a point as well. So I'm just pushing in from the other side too. And if you keep pushing into the gap, and then the rest of it, there's our flap, you can pull on that and then pull these other pieces out. Now, I happen to find a corner pointer or a creaser, so I can just tuck that in. So there's one nice little point. And then here are my sides. Let's just pull that in. And this one as well. There we are. See, those points are quite nice. Nothing wrong with those at all. So still going through the turning gap there. Oops. Oh, now that was a little bit close. So as that's quite close there, what I will do, I must have clipped that. I can just push that little bit through. I shouldn't have poked so well, should I? Okay, so I'm into that corner there. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stitch that again. Okay, so just go in just that little bit closer. And then out again, and hopefully that will close that little point. I think it would be, I'm going to be very gentle now. There we are. Oh, there's a little bit of thread there. Let's just trim that bit off. I think that was where it came undone. Okay, Trisha, go a little more carefully. I shouldn't use the pointy bit. I should use the rounded bit, shouldn't I? Right, so just very carefully into that point. And over there too. So not two. Okay, so we've got our flap nicely done anyway, and we've got that piece. And here, where my flap is, where I left that a little bit longer, that butts against the fusible V. And look how neat that looks. Just look how neat. Okay, so I'm just, and into these corners, these inverted corners, just give them a little wiggle like that. And then they are pretty neat too. Okay, so I'm going to give that a little press and across here. Really, really neat. And just so that we've got a nice, so you just have to imagine what I'm doing here. But I'm basically just using the iron to press all of this so it looks that little bit more neat, and that's it. So only, oh, I should have brought my mat up, shouldn't I? Okay, so I've just pressed that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch across that edge just to close that gap. So again, I'll just reverse at that side. And I'm stitching fairly close to the edge because I'm using this narrow foot. Okay, so I've stitched across there. Let's just make sure that's where the gap started. So there's a tiny bit of thread coming out of there. Just get rid of that. And then the little bit where we started stitching, and then the cut off at the end. So we'll clip those away. And I also like to stitch across here, which is where the flap joined. So I'm just going to stitch to the left of the flap and it's only just. So I'm lining that along just to give that. So you can see on here, that's where I've stitched across. It just, I don't know, it just adds that little extra by doing a stitch across, which I have just done here. So let's just cut that thread and I'll show you the stitching on here. So we've got a little row of stitching just across there. Now the rest is so easy. So what are we going to do? We are going to join that flap or that side to that side, that side to that side, that side to that side, and it's always two edges. It's almost as if you can see it. So I'll start here and always stitch from the open bit down to the fold. Okay, so let's just line that up. Pop yourself a clip on the side if you want to. So as I say, I'm starting right from that top edge and I'm going to reverse at the top and then just stitch down to the fold and reverse at the bottom. I'll do all the clipping at the end. Then I'm going to take the next two pieces here, line them up at that top edge because that's most important, but you can see how that fits perfectly anyway. So again, line that up and a little bit of reversing and then down to the fold, just pushing that a little bit and reverse a couple of stitches. And then similarly here, if you tuck it into the fold and you'll see that top edge meets perfectly anyway, and then just pop that down and we can flatten the rest of it because it's going to spring back up. And then I'm just checking there at the side that the seams are still aligned perfectly and reverse. And then the last one here, just line that up. And again, we can start from that top edge. It's not the easiest to see there, but it's basically from that line of stitching. Keep looking at these edges here to make sure they are perfectly matched and trim it off. So all I need to do now is go around. I think it's going to be on the same side for my long bit of thread. Oh no, let's do both at the same time. There's a little bit there and the bottom there. So clip those bits off and then here and there. Check on the other side just in case. And then here, there's a little bit and the threads we cut, and there's a little bit and there. Okay, so we have made it. So all we need to do now is pull that flap over as far as you want. Perhaps I think I used the bigger flap there. Pull it over, have a gap at the side, and that is going to look perfect. So we want to find the centre. I find the easiest way of finding the centre is to use a ruler. And why has Trisha never got a ruler to hand? So let's just find a big one. Okay. And let's just use this end here. So I have a ruler and this measures 4 3/4. So if I pop that, if I centre it from there, that's it, 4 3/4. So if I move it that way, so that is centred 1/8 each way, and then I can go for 2. So 2 inches is going to be my centre point, and I've just popped the seam ripper in the spot, and then I can just drag this down to where I want it, probably about 1/2 inch above. Let me just put this here just in case. That's it, 10, because that doesn't look. I'm going to put a pin in there because doesn't seem very central to me. So we can fold that in half. Oh, it is. So fold it in half, match those curves, and that is exactly in the centre. Must be my eyesight tonight. So with the seam ripper, I'm going to do a little nick. And I quite often just leave the seam ripper there so that I don't lose the hole when I am getting ready to put my cam snap in. And what colour are we going to use? I was going to use that blue, but it's not quite the right blue. So I think I'll go with my trusty cream. Cream is going to go very, very nicely. Let's see, with a pin, let's have an outie. Oh, outie there. And then we'll also want an innie. And we'll also need another button. Okay, so there we are. So for the flap, we want the button on the outside. Pop that through the hole. And then we'll need the outie on that side there. And then we will get our pliers and put the button into that white cup. And then the other side, we will just squash that down, and that is beautifully set. Then we will refold to see where, so just make sure that the sides are central there, and I think I want it down that far. So again, just press it down, lift the flap and see where the button hits the fabric, and it's just there. So let's give that a little cut. And from beneath, we need the button going into the other side. You can probably see, yes, there it is. So I can see the hole in that side so that we can press that through. And with this pouch, we've got a lovely big space to be able to get our punch in there. So button into the cup, and again, squeeze a couple of times so that that fits nicely, and then pop it down, and there is your lipstick pouch. See, nice shape at the sides, nice stitching along the back, and shape at the sides. There we are. So that is it. That is totally, oh, I've taken that out, haven't I? That's right. So let's just take it out again. Let's see if we can take this out gently and come back to me. Okay, so there it is. And here I am. Let's just push this down a bit. So much, oh, there's still no comments. Unbelievable. Oops. No, wrong way. Touched it again. Probably no, I haven't turned the microphone on. Whoops. There we are. Oh, so I've just got lots of, Janet Ball is watching. Let's see if I can see here. See here. Live chat, where are we? No. No. I want comments. I want comments. No, I don't. Anyhow, I've got no comments on here, no comments on there. I am really sorry. Let's see what that, oh, I found some now. There's Patricia. Thank you, Patricia. Oh, I can scroll back a little bit. Doesn't allow me to go back too far. So there's Leslie and Pat. Hope you're well, Pat. Caroline, Judith, Pippa, Liz, Christine, Patricia. Yes, making for friends for Christmas. Fantastic. Joanna, Gita, Pippa, Patricia, whoops. Beverly, Jack loves the blue and cream. Carol, all Virginia's ordered the cream and cherry. Cherry and cream, Evie. That sounds lovely, doesn't it? I'm hungry now. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, Barbara and Carolyn. Oh, thank you. So with this in mind, I will be having fabric sale, a bargain, end of bolt and bargain fabric sale this Thursday. But I will be getting in the brand new Christmas fabrics either Friday or Monday. And I am going to do Christmas in August. It won't be the first week of August, probably the second. And I shall be having those new fabrics then. And I shall be doing a Christmas pouch-tastic, so different ones. And you'll have many under your belt by the time we get there, because I love making things that are a little different shape and are quick to make. So, no, Janet, we didn't. There might have been something very similar, but I've made this up completely differently. I haven't made with doing a flap like that. So even though there's, I've done one where you stitch the sides like that, but not this, no. Absolutely new. Okay, thank you, Janet. So I'm going to leave you there. As I say, I will be doing Christmas in August. Don't know the exact dates yet. I'm planning on that. When all those new fabrics coming, and we will be having, there'll be some sort of special deal for you during that period as well. So thank you, Margot. So thank you for joining me tonight. It has been lovely. I do love making these, and I think once you've done one, you will want to make more and more because they are cute. I think perhaps what's happened to Ozzy Osbourne? Oh, there was a headline there. Okay, so the templates in the files. There are 2 templates, one for the main part and then one for the different flaps. See what you can do and pop some pictures in Sew Trisha Sews. It will be lovely to see. So as I say, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening and I will see you on Thursday. Take care. Bye for now.